Hey guys, so this would be the second unit that we go over. These units, unlike the first one that you just probably watched, are not, or these are split into two sections, I should say. The first one was not, it was only split, it was a one giant chunk. So this one is Unit 1, so we're covering Unit 1 in this chapter and in this video, but we're going to have it split between Lesson 1, or Lección 1, and Lección 2, Lesson 2. So for this first unit, or this first lesson, I should say, this was all about learning how to say like and dislike something, like you personally like or dislike something. So you also had activities on here. You had a few foods, drinks, and like snack foods on here. And you had the questions of, do you like to do something, or would you like to do something? So pretty much asking about personal preferences, right? Likes and dislikes. So at the beginning, we have it separated into talking about activities, and all of these were activities that you guys learned about, and we have a few more that we did throughout the year, but these are all the activities that we covered within that probably second month of school for Spanish 1. So you have like physical activities, you have school activities that you're probably talking about, like drawing and like writing and reading and things like that. And then you also have like physical sport activities too. So you guys have different activities that you have up here. If you remember, when it comes to verbs, which is an activity, right? It's a thing that you do. It's always identified, like you can tell that it's an action, it's a verb, based off how it's spelled and the ending. And so the ending is what tells you if something is an action word or a verb, something that you can do. In this case, we have almost all three, I want to say. Let me double check. Actually, maybe we only have two. No, yes, we do. We have all three. You have all three versions of the verbs. There's only three different types of verbs, and this list right here for the talk about activities has all three. Verbs end in one of three ways: with an AR ending, an ER ending, or an IR ending. So as long as it has one of those vowels, I, E, A, and the letter R, you know it's going to be a verb. So for example, if you take a look at our first list, it says alquilar un DVD, or to rent a DVD or a movie, basically. That's what it is. The verb is to rent, because you're going to go out and you're going to rent something, or you're going to buy something, you're going to watch something. Those are all different verbs, but this one specifically is just to rent. And it has that ending, AR. Most of these verbs that you have in this list are going to be AR verbs. They're just kind of the more common ones, and you just see them much more often. But all three of them are seen easily throughout like the Spanish language. So AR verb is going to be one of the versions that you guys have. You have a few more here. Here we have aprender, and like the third little word. Aprender el español. Aprender is the verb, so it's the action that you're doing, and it means to learn. This one, however, has an ER ending. That's one of the three versions of verbs that you will come across. So aprender is to learn, and that ER ending is called an infinitive. It's basically like the word to that we attach to our verbs. Like if you notice on the English side of these, they all say to something, like to buy, to drink, to eat, to draw. So the ER or the IR or the AR are basically like the word to that we add in English to our verbs. So that's another version of it. Lastly, I think we might just have one, but you have escribir. It's like towards the end of the first column. Escribir correos electrónicos. That would be the third version of the verb, an IR verb. And again, escribir, because it has that IR ending, you know it's the verb. That's what means to write. And you also had escribir in the last unit when it came to like class directions or textbook directions, because you're going to be writing stuff in class. And so that would be a direction that you have to know to understand. So you have all three versions here. And this section and this part of the lesson was pretty much focusing on identifying verbs, knowing how to tell if it's the verb with the AER, ARER, or IR, or learning how to say if you like / dislike that activity, that verb. So you have all your activities here, and you have your definitions right next to it. You also have some snack foods, because we learned how to say if you liked or disliked certain foods and drinks. So here you have a few, not meals, because you did cover meals, but that was later in the year. Just a few small snacks that you'll probably come across like in school situations and stuff too. We also talked about how nouns in general, so this section was like all verbs. This section right here is all nouns. we talked about how nouns in general have the word the attached to them, just like automatically in Spanish. Every noun, so every person, place, thing, object, idea, has one of those articles attached to it. And you can tell based off how the word is spelled if it's considered masculine or feminine. It's just like a category, not an actual gender, but a category. And then you choose the right article that goes with that word. So for example, el agua was the only one that did not fit that pattern in this whole section. So if you notice, if the noun, in this case, food or drink, has an A at the end, it has to have the word la in front of it as the article. If instead the noun or food, in this case, has an O at the end, like helado, it has to have the word el. And that's pretty much the pattern that all words follow, except for like the 1%, which is what happens all the time. It does not fit into the pattern. So in this case, the 1% in our foods and drinks that do not fit that pattern is the word for water, because it has the word agua, and that agua has an A at the end, but you do not actually put the word la in front. So it says that it's feminine here, but that's just to remind you that it's one that kind of doesn't fit the pattern. So if there's ever a word that doesn't fit that pattern, you'll have a little hint up here to remind you, yep, it's that, but it's not technically going to be the rule follower that you're supposed to look out for. So we had some foods and drinks. You had the questions down here of learning how to ask what you like to do. So asking somebody else what they would like. And you have the version of just, do you like something specifically? So I could ask, ¿qué te gusta hacer? If I just don't know what you like to do. And I want to know, what do you like to do? Is it this thing, this thing? You can come up with anything you want. But if I want to ask you something specifically, I ask the second one. So if I ask you, for example, ¿te gusta dibujar? I'm asking, do you like to draw? So I'm giving you a specific choice. Do you like this thing? Or ¿te gusta comer pizza? I'm giving you a specific option. So if you like it or if you don't, you have two ways of answering. If you do like something, you say me gusta. If you do not like something, you say no me gusta. Basically, that's it. And I feel like these are kind of easier for you guys to remember. So hopefully those are easy to remember from last year. Lastly, we always have a little like extra miscellaneous vocab section that doesn't fit into a specific category. So here you have words for just like actividad, because we're doing activities in the book. You have to know what that means as a label. Because we're talking about activities, you might like to do things antes de la escuela, like before school you like to do something, or después de la escuela, after school you like to do something. So you could use that when describing the things that you like or dislike. We had la escuela, of course, because that's school. You had the word más and the word o. So it's just one letter, but it does mean the word or. It's an entire word. You had pero. So you might like something, but not like at a certain time in the day, or not at a certain activity that you don't exactly prefer. And then you also have the word también, which is used super often because you're going to be saying, I like this, and I also like this, and I also like this. So it's like to make lists. Lastly, we have grammar. So this is the first grammar you guys received. We had a chart, which I'm hoping you guys still remember. This is a super important chart because you're going to be using this not just for this chapter, but like the entire year, as you can probably tell if you remember. So all the pronouns, which are just like the ways you replace the nouns instead of using someone's name over and over, you say like he or they or we or I, right? If you're talking about yourself. So all the blue words are the ways that you replace that person or people if it's a group, and then all the red words are going to be the verb for like being something. So this first box where it says yo soy, that means I am. Hopefully you guys remember that. Second box, tú eres, is you are. But if you remember, this form of you is going to be for the informal, so like with friends. Third box, you have a group there. You have usted, you have él, and you have ella, and all of them use the word es. So that box is he is or she is, or it could be you is. I know that sounds weird, but that's like the formal way. So you use usted es if you're talking to like adults. So it still means the word you, even though it's in a different box. Across from it, you have if it's groups of people. So if it's nosotros and they're all guys, you can say we. Nosotros somos, we are. If it's girls, then they would say nosotras somos. Again, we are, but they're all girls. We have vosotros, sois, or vosotras if they're girls, sois, and that one is specific to Spain. So we don't exactly use it here in the States or in kind of any other Spanish-speaking country, but again, Spanish comes from Spain, and that is specific to Europe themselves. So you do have to know what it means, because it will be used throughout the book, and if you just think, oh, well, I don't live there, I won't use it, when you come across it, you'll probably forget what it means and you won't know what's going on. So just know that exists, and I'm always going to go over it in class. And then the last box, you have 3 people again. Ustedes son, ellos son, or ellas son. Ellas, again, if it's a group of girls. Those are just they are. So it could be they as in all guys are, they as in all girls for ellas are, or they if it's a bunch of like adults, if it's a group of people who you would consider usted. And then it just means that they are. Secondly, here the second grammar concept you guys had, we're using gustar because we were talking about if you liked or disliked stuff. So you have pretty much a little box that would fit this way. I'm not sure why the book chose not to put it in that way, but they still go in the same order. So that first one, a mí me gusta, would be when you talk about yourself. Second one, a ti te gusta, is if you're talking like to somebody else. So if I'm telling you, I know you like pizza, I would say, a ti te gusta la pizza, because I know you like that thing. So I'm kind of calling you out on it. I'm saying you like it. Third box would still go, technically, actually, the third and the fourth would all go into that little third section if it was in a chart. So you have a usted le gusta, you have a él le gusta, or a ella le gusta. And they all mean the same, that you're talking about a person and that one person likes that thing. If it's an adult, if it's a guy, if it's a girl. Then you have a nosotros. So if you and a bunch of your like friends or family like something, you could say a nosotros nos gusta. We like to something, to eat something, to do something, to watch something. For vosotros, so if it was in Spain, that's the way that they pretty much say they for themselves. So they wouldn't say like a ellos or a ellas or a ustedes. They would just say a vosotros or a vosotras for that group, whoever they're talking about. So that one's still there. And then lastly, the one that we do use, we say a ustedes les gusta, a ellos les gusta, or a ellas les gusta if it's a lot of girls. And if you notice, this technically the last two, but it would be like in one box. But these last two do have S's on the word les, because it is more than one person that likes something. So based off the amount of people that like it, like if it's just me that likes it, or if it's just one person that likes it, you don't put that S. So if you notice, if it's just me, it's me. If it's just me talking to you that you like something, it's just with the te. If it's just one guy, one girl, one adult, they both have le. But this time, if it's a lot of guys, a lot of girls, or a lot of adults, they put an S on less. So something to keep in mind. You don't want to forget that. We do have the second lesson, so I'm going to skip to that in the same video for you guys. These are all the review pages. This was for page 51 on that chapter. This one I think is 75. Let's see. Yeah, 75. So the second unit, the second half of the unit is focusing on adjectives. So we kind of covered verbs in the first one, a little bit on how nouns work in the first one, and now the second lesson is all about adjectives, which are descriptions. So how you describe people, or how you describe yourself, or how you can describe things. So you had one question asking como eres, which is just like, what are you like? Are you athletic? Are you tall? Are you blonde? Are you artistic? Right? However you want to ask someone how they are. So this first section, the adjectives are separated into 2 sections, because one of them could be a personality trait, which is pretty much how you act. So I can't usually look at you and know if you're like a studious person, right? Like you're really smart and you do stuff, or I can't look at you and know if you're good at art or if you're good at a certain sport or something. But if it's appearance, which is the second column, you can kind of tell. Like I can tell if you're tall, I can tell if you're blonde. So they're separated into 2 categories, but they're just descriptions. So in this section, or in this chapter, you guys had all these adjectives, and if you notice, all of them have little parentheses on them. That is because based off of how you identify, you change the spelling to see if you need an O or if you need an A. So for example, because I'm a girl and identify as, I would use all the A spellings for my adjectives. So if I wanted to say I was artistic, I'd call myself artística. If I wanted to say I was athletic, I'd call myself atletica. Or if I thought I was a good person, buena. If it's a guy and he wants to go by the guy form, then he would say O for all of these. So if you come across a word and you think that it was like spelled incorrectly because it has a different letter at the end, it's just that the person's talking is not what you were using. So like if you were using A's and you see an O, it's because that person's talking about themselves and they're a guy. So you have all the definitions here. You also had some hair color. However, you had to put a verb in front of the hair color. So if you yourself have something, you'd say tengo, and then the hair color that you have. If someone has something, so like if he has it or she has it, you say tiene, and then the hair color. So if you just say hair color, it wouldn't be a full phrase. Like you need to say the word for tengo for myself or tiene if someone else has. We also talked about people because you were describing people. He's a man, he's a woman, or she's a woman, sorry, or he's a boy or a girl, whoever they are. So you have all the different people here. We also had friend because you're going to be describing a lot of friends for yourself in like these activities or for student. If you notice, the word estudiante is the same because there's no A or O at the end. So if the word ever has an E, it just kind of stays that way. The only thing that does change is the article at the beginning, el or la, because you're going to be describing the type of student based off of that first like prefix that sets the word off. So either an L if it's a guy student or a la if it's a girl student. So that does technically change, but the word student doesn't change. We also had a few, again, miscellaneous words and phrases for very, a little, because, and all. And again, depending on the things. So like if I'm talking about all the boys, I'd say todos. I'm talking about all the girls, I'd say todas. So it means the same thing, just spelled differently depending on what you're describing. And like usual, you have two grammar concepts. So the first one were articles, which is kind of what we talked about at the top. Definite articles are the things that you use to help identify the type of person or object that you're talking about. So like whatever noun you're mentioning. So you have four. For masculine, or the O spelling that you'll be used to seeing attached to the noun, you have a few versions. You have either el, if you want to say the boy. You have los, if you want to say the boys, which is why there's S's on these. And if you want to be indefinite and be like more general, instead of saying the boy, you want to say a boy. So it's not like the boy who took my book, it's just a boy took my book. I don't know who, just somebody. So if you need to be specific, you use a definite because there's like a definite answer for it. If you need to be general and just say like, I need a book, I don't care what book, I just need to take a book to class, then you use indefinite. And then based off of if it's feminine or masculine, you know which one to choose. So those are the ones for masculine. For feminine, again, you have la, if it'll be the girl, someone specific, or las chicas, if it's going to be a lot of girls, but like a specific group of girls. And then if you're being more general, then you say una chica, it's just a girl. Or unas chicas, it's just some girls. I don't know who, but there were some girls. The second side, kind of like what you already see in this chart, is called noun adjective agreement. And that's what I mentioned at the top in the vocab too. Based off the noun, how it's spelled, you have to make sure like everything in that sentence or in that phrase matches. So if the noun is masculine, for example, or you're talking about a guy, make sure you describe him in however way he is, but make sure you describe him using the masculine spelling, and then make sure that you use the correct article. If you use like an L or a los, depending on what you're trying to say. So examples here, they're saying the tall boy. So if it's masculine, all of this has to be spelled in the masculine form. So that means using L as your article, making sure that chico has the O because you're talking about a boy, and alto has the O because, again, you're talking about a boy. He's just tall. Similarly, if it's for a girl, everything should match the feminine form. So you use la because you're saying the for the girl. Chica has to have the ne because you're talking about a girl. And alta describes her as being tall. It's a girl. Now, if it's a lot of people that you're describing, all of this has to also match. So in this time, instead of saying the boy is tall, you're saying some for los. Chicos is boys, and then altos are tall. You're saying some tall boys. So some tall boys are applying for something, whatever you might need to say, but it all has to match. And then same for the feminine form. You're saying las chicas altas. That's why it's highlighted. You have to make sure that that matches. If it doesn't, your reader, me included, is going to be confused because I could say, well, you started talking about a girl, but then by the end you were describing a guy. So is it a different person or what's going on? So you have to just double check your work and make sure every single thing matches. This is basically the second unit, the entire unit. So this took you guys quite some time in Spanish 1. I'm going to stop your video here. You have some of this practice on our Canvas. We're going to do a few activities on there and off of there as well. And the next one you guys have will be, I want to say it's food related, but I'm not so sure. So I'll double check and I'll get back to you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. This was on page 75, like I told you guys, and then I'll catch you in the next video.